time to reflect on Dr. King's extraordinary journey as the preeminent leader of the civil rights movement in the United States.
One of the major tenets of Dr. King's message was our shared responsibility for our fellow man. He believed that each of us has an obligation to try to make the world a better place, to give back to our community, and to reach out to those in need. This is why you are gathered here today in his name for our day of service. Today, as we participate in a number of service projects to benefit others, we honor Dr. King and his legacy and continue the good work he began in his short time on this earth.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an extraordinary man who shaped our history and changed the world through nonviolent civil disobedience. He had many remarkable accomplishments in his short time on this earth, and he left us with a legacy of hope and inspiration. Dr. King got his first taste of political activism as an undergrad at Morehouse College by speaking out against violence.
He continued that spirit of peaceful protest throughout his life, often alongside his wife, Coretta Scott King. After his early career brought him to Dexter Avenue Baptist Church as a pastor, Dr. King was recruited to serve as a spokesman for the boycott in Montgomery, Alabama.
Reporters and television crews came to Alabama, and soon people around the nation and around the world were watching the marchers of Montgomery. They marched to work. They marched to organize carpool centers. When they were arrested, they marched to jail. They used what Martin Luther King called the weapon of love.
I look back over Montgomery and think of the fact that for all of these days, 381 days, more than 99 9/10% of the Negro citizens participated in the boycott. They confronted harassing experiences, they confronted physical violence, and never did they retaliate with a single act of physical violence.
The weapon of love won the battle. The Supreme Court ruled 13 months after Rosa Parks' arrest that segregation on Alabama buses was unconstitutional.
The year-old protest against city buses is officially called off, and the Negro citizens of Montgomery are urged to return to the buses tomorrow morning on a non-segregated basis.
In 1957, Dr. King was elected president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization designed to provide a new leadership for the growing civil rights movement. 6 years later, he led a coalition of numerous civil rights groups in nonviolent campaign aimed at Birmingham, Alabama, which at the time was described the most segregated city in America. King and his fellow protesters boycotted businesses that practiced segregation and held sit-ins at libraries and offices with signs that read whites only or colored only. They sat at lunch counters where African Americans were not allowed to sit. They marched to the county courthouse to register black voters. For this, King and many others were arrested, including hundreds of school children. Listen to his words to his supporters at a local church as the campaign grew in size and scope.
Keep this movement going. Keep this movement rolling. In spite of the difficulties, and we're going to have a few more difficulties, keep climbing. Keep moving. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl, but by all means, keep moving.
Dr. King's national profile grew as people around the country watched violent television images of young blacks being assaulted by dogs in water hoses. A national outrage arose, resulting in a push for unprecedented civil rights legislation. Dr. King's decision to allow himself to be arrested for leading a demonstration in Birmingham prompted President John F. Kennedy to intervene in the escalating protests. King was successful in his efforts publicly desegregate lunch counters in local businesses in Birmingham, and it was time to take the campaign for civil rights to the entire nation. In 1963, Dr. King and other leaders led the March on Washington, where he gave one of his most famous speeches, galvanizing the nation with his words.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
After the march, Congress passed the landmark Civil Rights Act, essentially eliminating legalized racial segregation in the United States. The legislation made it illegal to discriminate against blacks or other minorities in hiring, public accommodations, education, or transportation areas, which at the time were still very segregated in many places. Dr. King was named Time Magazine's Man of the Year, and at the age of 35, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. But the news was not all good. In 1963, a dynamite blast killed 4 young schoolgirls at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham. And then came Bloody Sunday, where peaceful protesters tried to march across a bridge in Selma, Alabama, and were met with state troopers and a posse of local residents. Dr. King addressed a crowd gathered at the state capitol and built support for voting rights for African Americans. There were victories, like in 1965, when Congress passed the Voting Rights Act, which eliminated barriers for black citizens to vote. But there were also frustrations, and many African Americans lived with poverty and discrimination. Dr. King called on the nation to live up to the promise of freedom and equality for all.
I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
His words now seem to forward the future. Dr. King was assassinated the day after he gave that speech when a gunman shot him in Memphis, Tennessee. But King's influence did not end with his death. His accomplishments are now taught to American children of all races, and his techniques are studied by scholars and students worldwide. He is the only non-president to have a national holiday dedicated in his honor, and is the only non-president memorialized on the Great Mall in the nation's capital. His image and name grace hundreds of statues, parks, streets, churches, and other public facilities around the world as a great leader who has so much to teach. Dr. King did not live to see us here today, but if he did, he would be really proud.
think today is all about actually getting out there and coming together as a community. And I think that it's important that we don't just talk about it, but we have the action behind it.
To be caring and helpful and be as kind as you can. To give food to other people who may not be as fortunate as you are.
The takeaway message today is that small actions make big change, seeing the community come together.
The message is that no matter how big your community is or how big the city is, we can all get together and give back to our community and make someone else feel better.
With the hands and feet we've been blessed with the heart and mind we've been given, it should not be used, just for ourselves, but also as much as we can for other people. So, yeah.
Today is about giving to the people, because as Dr. Martin Luther King once said, that he had a dream and we want to fulfill his dream. And so these veterans are also, they're making our dream come true. So today is just about giving back.
That the community can get together for all of our soldiers that are fighting for us and make them feel good while they're gone, away from their families. It's a huge message.
DI team from Schroeder, and we came to help out all the troops, and we built quilts and packaged food and stuff. It was really fun.
I just know that people are fighting for us in our country, and I just want to appreciate the work they do for us.
It's not that hard to make a change in your community. Just boxing food and making blankets here can actually do a lot of help.
Everyone can take away the message that although Martin Luther King did do a lot of work to help us and improve diversity, there is still a lot of inclusivity that we need to do, and we are making a lot of steps toward progress.
Today really just kind of shows how people, from a variety of different backgrounds, different parts of the community, they all just come together for something so powerful as, the message of Martin Luther King. And it's really great that so many people were able to come out today, and I was glad to be a part of this event. If you provide an opportunity for people to come together for the right reason, then they will come, they will show up, and they will exceed our expectations. And that's exactly what the Troy community did today.
Hats off to the administration, hats off to the board, and our wonderful kids who have put this event together today. Thank you.